Namaskaram to all. Welcome to Clyde Samvada, brought to you by the Hindu Temple of Scotland. Today we have Savitha ji with us. Savitha ji has been practicing Carnatic music for a number of years now. And we thought we will delve into the history of Carnatic music, a bit into its origins, the nuances of Carnatic music in today's episode. Welcome Savitha ji to the Clyde Samvada.
Thank you, Srivas ji, and thank you for inviting me to do this conversation today. I'm really humbled and honored to be here. I would just reiterate that I'm not an expert in this field. I'm a lifelong student in Carnatic music.
We are all, so that's a constant for everyone who's been on the show so far. Yeah. So maybe start by like the initial origins to Carnatic music. So any insights that you have on that front?
So with any art form in Indian culture, Indian classical music is supposed to have been originated from the Hindu gods and goddesses. And there has been references about this in Mahabharata and Ramayana. So by the 12th century, because of the Persian and Arabic influence, the Indian classical music started diverging into two subgenres, one being the Hindustani and the other being Carnatic. Okay. So the difference in the language and the culture between the north and the south, that also fueled this separation. By the 17th century, there was a clear demarcation between the two, and the Carnatic music was a separate subgenre with minimal influence from Persian music. Okay. That's how it all started.
Okay, so was it just a regional difference in terms of the language and who were ruling different parts of the country, or is there elements of musically there are differences?
Yeah, there are a few differences between Hindustani and Carnatic. Basic differences being the language, the origin, instruments, style of singing. In Hindustani music, there is more freedom for exploring the raga, obviously staying within the framework of the raga, whereas with Carnatic, the compositions are a bit more structured. So there's a strict way of singing that composition. I'm not saying Carnatic music doesn't give us that freedom. There is Manodharma and all that. You still have that freedom, but not as much as Hindustani.
Manodharma is more like a self-expression.
Yeah, so it's trying to explore that raga by yourself. So that's still there in Carnatic music, but probably not as much as, that's my understanding.
Okay. Interesting. And when we talk about these nuances or the specifics of Carnatic, is there like the rules, like as to how Carnatic music gets developed? Just to give a comparison, like from like the Western music, for instance, there used to be like these chords which are like up and down and all of that, right? So is there a similar element or comparative to that in the Carnatic music?
Yeah, I'll come to the elements, basic elements of Carnatic music. But before that, Carnatic music originated from Samaveda. Okay. And it's related to obviously the South Indian states. Okay. And the focus in Carnatic music is the vocal music. And they are sung through compositions or kritis really. The kritis were composed by legends like Purandaradasa and the trinity of Carnatic music. I'll come to that in a minute. And they were written in all the South Indian languages, Sanskrit, Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada. Now, the basic elements within a composition are raga and tala. And I think even in the Western music, it's still the same. You have to have the rhythm and the scale and the, everything is on different octaves. They are all the same, I feel, but they are expressed in different ways in different genres of music, isn't it? There are 12 swaras and different combinations of the swaras, you get different ragas. And then within Carnatic music, there are different types of talas as well. And then you have the Shruti, which is the pitch or the scale at which you sing. And then there's Sahityam, the lyrics. And that everything together, you get that particular composition. And that's the basic elements of
So Sahityam, Talam, Shruti, those are the main things. Okay. Super. And you talked about like these different people who made these big contributions, right? So you had Purandaradasa and the Trinity. So any sort of insights into their story and how they connected the music to temples and the cultural element to it?
Yeah. So this all happened between the 14th and the 17th century. Okay. And the golden age of Carnatic music is said to have been during the Vijayanagara Empire. Okay. And what happened at that time, the royal courts were flocked by all these artists trying to get a platform to showcase their talents. Okay. And at this point, I talk about Purandaradasa, who is the father of Carnatic music, Pitamaha. He was born in 1484, and his name was Srinivasa Nayaka. He was supposed to be a wealthy merchant of gold and silver and other jewelry, and he was an ardent devotee of Lord Vishnu. Okay. So once he had a dream, or Lord Vishnu appeared before him, and after that vision, he gave away all his wealth. And he started living on alms, and he became a Haridasa. And he started singing praises of Lord Vishnu under the name Purandaradasa, and that's how it all started. And he's said to be an incarnation of Narada. No wonder he started singing.
Doing music.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was in Andhra Pradesh or?
Yeah.
Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah. And then his first composition is called Ana Lekara in Shuddha Saveri Ragam. Okay, I'll sing a few lines of that composition. Analekara unni polati sakala shastra purana dindam tala parigatu re Setuvaha parigatam nam jadajuda sakala shastra purana dindam tala dindam. So,
that is super melodious.
Thank you. The meaning is, as you stand watching, water in a tank actually gets leaked from one end of the tank, and similarly your life gets wasted if you're not aware of the ancient texts and scriptures. So that's the meaning. And that was, yeah, absolutely. And that was his first composition.
Interesting. This was 14th century.
Yeah.
Maybe 1480s,
yeah, because he was born in 1484, so maybe
in
you can imagine. Yeah. There was another story about him, how he came about giving a structure to the Carnatic music. Once he wanted to teach the children in his village some of his compositions, and he was trying in different ways to teach the children, but whichever way he taught them, they would only sing in a particular way. And he then realized that he had to come up with a very simple form of raga or something, put it in a way that it will be easy for the children to learn it. Okay, and that's when he combined the swaras and came up with Maya Malagaula raga.
So Maya Malagaula goes back to Purandaradasa.
And that is the same raga even today that we use to start first lessons of Sarli Varisai and
correct. Okay, I know that part, but then I didn't know this connection. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Okay, and then he went on to give a structure to the syllabus of Carnatic music, which forms the foundation of Carnatic music, giving those exercises like Sarli Varisai, Jhanda Varisai, Thaat Varisai, Alankaras and everything in Maya Malavagavla. And that's what we teach students, or we all learn Carnatic music from day one when we start with Sarli Varisai, and that's what we use Maya Malavagavla raga.
Okay, that's really insightful. So this is Purandaradasa, and who kind of followed it up from Purandaradasa?
So before I go to the trinity of Carnatic music, there's also one point about Purandaradasa, because whenever you hear a composition, there are certain signatures or mudras in a composition where you can pick up and you then know who the composer is. And Purandaradasa's signature was Purandara Vittala. So if you hear a composition, and if you pick up that word, you know who the composer is.
Interesting.
So coming to the trinity of Carnatic music, they are Tyagaraja Swamigal, Shyama Shastrigal and Muthuswami Dikshithar. Now, they were all born in the same village, Tiruvarur. Okay. So we start with Tyagaraja Swamigal. His mudra was Tyagaraja. So in his kritis, you will always hear Tyagaraja.
We had Tyagaraja Aradhana at the temple for the last 2 years. So I think we have people who have come regularly would have picked it up. And we also had an episode where we talked about Tyagaraja Aradhana itself.
Panja Ratna kritis, I saw that episode as well. So the main thing with Tyagaraja is that compositions. He has done thousands and thousands of compositions, but apparently only about 720 odd compositions are available now. I don't know whether they are lost in transit over the years, probably. He was an ardent devotee of Rama, and there are a few stories about him as well, because once he lost his idol, Rama idol, and apparently the story says that his brother threw it into a pond. Okay. And he was really upset and sad, and that's when he composed Nagumo Omuganalini Nila Jali and Ragam Abhiri, and you can see the sadness and the devotion of that raga coming in that composition. And apparently, after he composed this composition, the idol came up in the pond, and that's the story about him. Now, he also had a vision of Lord Rama on top of Badragiri hills, and apparently Lord Rama told him that he would attain salvation in 10 days' time, and that's when he composed Giripai Nelakonna in Shahana Raga, and that was his last composition apparently. And coming to Shyama Shastrigal, compared to his contemporaries, Shyama Shastrigal didn't have that many compositions. He's got about 300 odd compositions, but the unique thing about him is the quality of literature and the rhythm in his compositions. And his signature is Shyama Krishna.
Shyama Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay. Shyama Krishna, Tyagaraja, Purandara Vittala.
Purandara Vittala. Okay. And coming to Muthuswami Dikshidhar, his signature is Guru Guha.
Guru Guha.
And Guru Guha is also another name for Sri Muruga.
Muruga, yes.
Okay. So the story is that Sri Muruga came disguised as a beggar in front of Muthuswami Dikshidhar and gave him a sweet. And as soon as the sweet touched his tongue, he started singing.
Okay.
So that's how the story is. And you can see in his compositions poetic elaboration of all gods and temples.
So this is like around 16th, 17th century?
Yeah, so everything between 14
to
starting from Purandaradasa to sort of this.
Trinity. It's like
14th to 17th century.
And what happened after that?
Yeah, so by then around the 18th, 19th century, there were a lot of kingdoms in South India, and these royalties were the ones who supported and promoted, absolutely, like Kingdom of Mysore, Kingdom of Trivandrum, Tanjavur, everywhere. And you have to remember, these royalties themselves were quite talented.
Yeah, Swadi
Tirunal and his compositions were amazing. And after that, when India got independence, when the princely states were all dissolved, then what happened? Chennai, Madras, the old Madras became a locus for Carnatic music. And then started little sabhas. And they started promoting Carnatic music. They started opening up ticketed programs for the masses. And that's how Carnatic music became available, or the general public became more aware of this subgenre of music.
Absolutely. I mean, so like every year, like the Margari Utsavam is a very, very big deal in Chennai, for instance, like Nayadagana Sabha and all of that. So absolutely.
So, and then in the 20th century, like legends like M.S. Subbalakshmi and Semmagudi, they actually took it to another level, global level, and they kind of spread the magic of Carnatic music worldwide. And that's from like the 12th century to 20th century, the transition, how Carnatic music kind of evolved over the centuries.
Interesting, super. And in terms of this evolution, like, is there any other tidbits of insights in terms of what the contemporary discussions around Carnatic music is? How would younger children pick it up? Any tidbits on that?
Well, basically, the earlier you start singing, the better. Because the thing about Carnatic music is that in the olden times, it was Gurukula system. And nothing was written down. It was just passed on vocal from the Guru to the Shishya. And the Shishya used to live with the Guru in their house and serve the Guru. So, but obviously nowadays, it's not like that. It's online music classes, especially after the COVID. What Purandaradasa did was, when he structured the syllabus, these Sarli Varise, Janda Varise, Dhatu Varise, and all of these exercises, they have a specific purpose for it. So one of the exercises will open up your throat, and another one will help you to control your breath. Okay, another one will improve your gamagams. Okay, so that is why. And then as you learn, you start off with very simple exercises, and as you go forward, you increase the complexity of these exercises.
So it's almost like going from first standard to standard, like increasing complexity
exactly like that. Absolutely, exactly like that. And then after a few years, it takes a few years to get to a certain level where one can start giving concerts and. So that's where we are now.
Super. Thank you so much for talking to us in detail and giving us almost like a 800-year story of Carnatic music.
In 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes. And also very seamlessly transitioning from your conversation to the musical bit as well. So it was very seamless in how you went between the two. So thank you so much for sharing all these insights.
Thank you. My pleasure. Namaste.